Welcome back to Midlife by Design. I am your host, Lori Lisai, human design teacher and coach for midlife women, helping you shed the shoulds and remember who you came here to be. If you're looking for a coach to help you navigate midlife and or perimenopause, book a midlife mapping call and let me help you get some clarity. Link will be in the show notes. And today I have with me Stephanie Shaw, host of the Hello Hot Flash podcast, which is a show dedicated to educating and amplifying the voices of women who are navigating midlife and menopause. She also produced Christian Women and Menopause, which is a limited series podcast exploring the intersection of faith and women's health, which I will address during the podcast itself. And in addition to hosting the pod, Stephanie is the founder of Hello Podcast Launch, where she helps mission-driven entrepreneurs and health experts launch and grow high-impact podcasts. She is also the curator of a powerful resource for speakers and educators, which is a searchable list of over 900 vetted speaking opportunities, which are designed to help experts land more stages, grow their authority, and increase visibility. Stephanie holds a master's degree from Northeastern University and 2 nutrition certifications, and her work blends education, strategy, and advocacy to elevate conversations around women's health. I am so excited for you to hear our conversation. So without further ado, let's dive in. Welcome back to Midlife by Design. Today, I am so excited to have with me Stephanie Shaw, who has been on a wild journey with perimenopause and and menopause, and has come out of it and turned her journey into gold for the rest of us, to help us to learn how to trust ourselves with this journey. So welcome, Stephanie. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into some questions.
Yeah, Lori, thank you so much for having me here. I start off by saying, who am I? I'm a grandma. Like that's my claim to fame.
Yay!
I've been someone's mom, now I'm someone's grandma. Who am I? But again, my name is Stephanie Shaw. I've spent 20 years in corporate America, 10 years running an education nonprofit. Got really sick, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And that made me have a huge pivot in life. I decided I was not going back to corporate. I was not going back into nonprofit space. I needed to get the information to people that I lacked when I was going through my transition. So wife, mom, grandma, fun loving introvert. That's it.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so your perimenopause journey seems like a bit of a wild goose chase for you in terms of sorting out what was happening in your body. So I would love if you could share how things unfolded and how you eventually were able to heal and really help yourself.
Yeah. So sometimes when I think back, I'm like, oh, wait, I was on the journey much longer than I knew, but I just kind of brushed things off. Oh, I'm kind of having a hot flash. Oh, I can't sleep at night. So that just gives me opportunity to work more. I had a girlfriend, we would text in the middle of the night. You're not sleeping? Oh, I'm not sleeping either. Let's talk about this. That's quote unquote normal, isn't it? So rapid heartbeat periodically, just tons of digestive issues. So, you just take something for it and you keep moving. But all of those were silent and not so silent cues that something was going on in my body. So it was March of 2017. I was in New Orleans for a business trip, and then my complete body crashed. That day, I ended up in 2 different ERs. I was walking along the street. I don't party or anything like that, but I'm like, you're in New Orleans. You need to go to Bourbon Street and see what everyone's talking about.
Right?
Not before. I was literally about to step my foot onto Bourbon Street, and it felt like I was, what I'm describing is having a stroke. So my jaw went numb, my hands and feet were tingling. I had a rapid heartbeat. It just felt off. So the girl I was with she was actually my employee at that time, but she had some nursing background. So she kind of like walked me through, talked me through. We got a Gatorade, did all of that other stuff. We went back to the hotel. I went to the one ER. That ER couldn't handle me, and I went to another ER. And between 2017 and 2019, I ended up at 18 different doctors,
Mm.
both Western and Eastern medicine, over $20,000 out of pocket. And I stopped counting because I'm like, oh, that's a good number. I'll just stop there before I figure out how much I really spent. Because there was no,
Oh.
I didn't count gas and all that other stuff. I traveled across three different states, but I had doctors in four different states.
Mm.
Two world-renowned medical facilities. If I said the name of one, you would be like, "Oh, wait, they have a branch in my area." So I
Mhm.
everywhere trying to figure out what was going on. I had auras, floaters in my eye. My hair was falling out. Rapid heartbeat when I climbed the stairs. For a period of time, I didn't drive for almost 2 months. So there was a lot of things going on in my body. While I won't blame perimenopause on everything, I'll say that it started to trigger some anxiety and stress, which compounded what was
Yeah.
going on in my body. So I had to, work through all of that. I was the girl that said, "Oh, why are they anxious?" Or, just kind of suck it up. And I've never said it out loud to anyone. I always said it in my head, but now I publicly say I apologize to anyone that I even spoke that to them to in my head, because it's such an overwhelming feeling. And that's just some of the things that I went through during perimenopause. It was a total upheaval of my life.
Mm. That's crazy. And I wrote down something that you said, which was, oh, I'll just take something and keep moving. Right. And that is, it's something that's so programmed into us. I think
Mhm.
from when we're young, even when we're sick and have a cold or something, take some cough medicine and keep moving. It's this constant push to keep moving as if that is the only goal in life, when actually so much of what I have learned about this phase of life is about slowing down, right? It's about honoring what your body is telling you. And so I'm curious how you feel like intuition played a part in the unfolding of your story.
Yeah, so I think that was the key, because
Mm.
doctor to doctor to doctor. For me, when I had a digestive problem, it would always be something over the counter, or do you know what I mean? Something like that, never
Hmm.
like a script. So in my mind, I always knew I didn't want a script. But if you can give me a Tums, then give me a Tums kind of thing.
Hmm.
But doctor after doctor kept trying to tell me which direction I needed to go in. Take this medicine, have this test. This is what's wrong with you. This isn't what's wrong with you, but you need to go see my friend because they can tell you what's wrong with you. And so,
Hmm.
probably in the beginning of the journey, intuition was not part of it because it was fear based. Like, you're in a different state with a person you work with, but kind of still a stranger. It's not your family member, and you don't know what is going on. So I was operating out of fear, like, whatever test, whatever you give me, just help me get better. And
Hmm.
then not too soon after that, or not too long after that, I started to use my intuition, like, hey, when I eat this, or when I do this, or when this person upsets me, this kind of happens. I started mapping things together. Oh, this makes me feel this way. Oh, this makes me feel that way.
Yeah.
And I kept going to the doctors, because I will tell folks that while not always the solution you may need, you still need to rule things out. So I kept going to the doctors, but I allowed them to rule out I wasn't having a stroke, I wasn't having a heart attack, I didn't have cancer, all of that stuff. But my intuition kept telling me that they're ruling these things out, but there's something deeper going on. Keep going to the doctor, but then on your own, you need to start working on you. So I had to work on not just the perimenopausal symptoms, like, hot flashes, don't eat sugar kind of thing, but how I had big girl conversations with the people, why I no longer needed to say yes to everything, why no is a complete sentence, like all of that are things that, like, I started building this. I know, right? When the people
Mhm.
are listening, we're like snapping our fingers, because it's so powerful. I start listening to what my gut told me about why I was in the middle of this, and why mine seemed like at this heightened level of what anything that I'd ever seen. or heard of. When I started doing that, that's when a lot of the changes initially started taking place. I journaled a lot during that time. And that's actually the way that I was able to figure out like who was upsetting me. I'm like, man, every time I write about this person, there's all this anger. Like the weight of the pen was different. The slay of my handwriting was different. And I could kind of piece all these things together. And that's what your intuition does for you. It helps you see things that you normally can't see. And then the journaling helped as a guide to kind of add credibility to what I already knew and what I was feeling. So yeah, yeah. That's a
Oh
crazy
my God.
time.
No, it's so good. We talk on this pod all the time about letting your body lead and listening to what it's trying to tell you. And I just listening to you describe journaling and how the handwriting was different and how you started to notice those patterns. That is the power of the inner knowing. And it's all about self-awareness, which is, again, another thing that we talk about. And human design is just a system for doing that. And so I think one of the things that you touched on at the beginning there about visiting all the doctors and what we were talking about earlier with taking a medication or taking something and just keep going. It's that idea of outsourcing our power, right? And outsourcing our knowing, right?
Good.
To
Oh,
somebody,
good.
yeah, to somebody else. And I think midlife is about reclaiming that. And personally for me, I believe that perimenopause and menopause is sort of like a portal. It's like this invitation in through our bodies, through the experience that our bodies are having with the hormonal chaos and all of the different symptoms. I mean, there's a list of like 80 to 100 symptoms. I'm basically, if you're breathing between the ages of mid 30s to mid 50s, like you're going through it. So your symptoms could be anything, which means that the way that your body actually decides to communicate those symptoms is your way of understanding what it is that you have to learn in this phase of life. So for you, the whole piece about people pleasing, right? And the piece about the people who were making you angry in your life. And we don't give enough credence to that stuff when we really should. And this is the period of time when I feel like so many women wake up because we're forced to, because we can no longer ignore the symptoms, right?
Yeah, exactly. Forced to, and not giving our powers over to someone else. I'd never thought about outsourcing our power. That's good. Yeah, yeah, you're right. I was forced to make changes.
Yeah, and I love that you still were seeing doctors. It's not that this period of life is asking you to just shun everything.
Right.
I think it's more about understanding that your relationship with your physician or whatever, your healthcare providers in general are partnerships. But in the end, you hold the authority.
Mhm.
Right? You are the boss of you, and you are the one responsible for seeing those patterns, understanding what your life is trying to tell you, what your body is trying to tell you.
Yeah, that is so true. And again, no one knows how you are feeling. Again, it's a lot of times the tests well, every test came back normal for me, but I'm like, is
Mhm.
that my normal? And you really don't know what's going on or how I'm feeling. I can explain it to you, but the only thing you're looking at is um, science that was not probably even done on a woman. Like
Right?
you can't tell me if this is right or wrong. Just help me, eliminate or make sure I don't have again X, Y, and Z, and so I can move forward. But yeah, it was I may have thought of it that way in the past. I don't know if I have at least recently, but it was a time of I don't want to even say reclaiming power, but gaining power or getting power or learning that I had power. That might be a better way to say
Mhm.
it because of just I was just super late and I'm still super laid back. I am. That's just me. But sometimes you can hide yourself when you need to shine.
Mhm. For sure. You mentioned earlier that you're an introvert,
Uh-huh.
right? You like to have fun, but there's an introvert piece of you.
Mhm.
And there's also that piece about power. I think women, it's different. It looks different for women, right? Female power, feminine power is much more about intuitive sensing and intuitive knowing and flow versus, the masculine, which is more pushing, maybe a little more showboaty or a little more out there. And the truth is that we need both and we balance one another. But I think our society is much more skewed to think that power equates with all of the things that we think of as masculine. So one of the things I think about in midlife is this deep questioning period that we come into, that these health concerns or crises or symptoms, they sort of give birth to these big, deeper questions. And you mentioned that you didn't go back to corporate, right? That you pivoted and are now on this entrepreneurial journey. And there are these big questions that come up during this time of life, like, who are we? What's next? Do I like the life that I built? Do I like the person that I am? So I'm curious how you've taken your experience and built something that helps women who are now navigating those very questions.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. I'm like, I'm not going back. I'm protesting. I've been, wanting to get out of here 20 years ago.
Right?
And for a period of time I couldn't go back. That's how I was very isolated in the house for a while. So it gave me a lot of time to think. And as I said before, I think part of what I learned was I had to Google and piece together every single answer because, in 2017, these weren't the same conversations that are happening now, even in 2019 or 2020. Like we weren't talking about menopause this much. Maybe I'm in the world now, but I really just think we weren't having these conversations. So I sat with myself. One, I always wanted to do something in food. I always wanted to do something in nutrition. And my degree is in telecommunications. So I've done TV and radio. So I'm like, oh, why don't I have a podcast? Like it was a much bigger than that. I felt like the Holy Spirit told me that this is something that I needed to do. So it was a gap that I was filling. But I also thought this is a great way for me to put this information in one place for women. So that was part of what I initially did. I started with the podcast, Hello Hot Flash. And so I had an opportunity while I was still in recovery to interview all these amazing physicians who were giving me advice. I'm like, oh, wait, this is for me more than for the people
Right.
more than my audience. So I'm like taking notes and sharing it with family members and, cousins are saying, hey, I feel this, this, and this. And I'm like, oh, wait, I just talked to this physician on the podcast and this is what you should do. So it helped me pivot, still make an income, but also help other women. So part of initially what I did was nutrition coaching. So I did a lot of coaching, had some really great results with women. And then I started to, and I don't know, we'll get into this a little bit later, but part of what I've started to do more is pivot more towards the women who I have been interviewing. So I'm interviewing women and they're thinking about starting a podcast or they want to get more interviews. So I'm now pivoting towards the business side of it and making sure that I can help women amplify their voices.
Yeah, which is such a beautiful next step for you. And it's part of why I wanted to have you on the pod because you seem like you've had such a very rich life with a lot of different stages, like the corporate stage, you did that thing, then the health crisis, and then moving into the podcast, and now moving on to help women share their messages, right? And I think it's such a beautiful story to share because a lot of the women that I work with, they've been in some kind of job for many, many years and I don't know if it's something about Gen X, something about that grittiness, that we have that just feels like, well, I have to, I'm failing somehow if I stop doing what I've been doing for so many years, if I built all this thing and then suddenly I shift, I'm somehow failing. And so I think that is due to decades of conditioning, of people pleasing, of living up to everybody else's expectations. And it just leaves midlife women doubting themselves. So I'm curious for you, when it comes to helping women share their message, what do you say to women who are like, who, me? Like, what do I have to share? Why would I do that? And how could I possibly make that pivot? So how do you help them?
So first of all, yes, you. If they're asking who, me, yes, you. I think part of it is a lot of times we don't recognize the story that we have, or we think our story is a story that everyone has, and not understanding the power that your message, what you can speak to and about people, the message that you can give to people rather, is very, very powerful and impactful. I will get people that say, I can't believe you went to 18 doctors. I went to 14, but I was embarrassed to tell people, or something like that. And how did you get through it? So other women have other voices like that. You have stories to tell. So what I really love about the podcast production side that we're working on is just that other women just have ideas of, how can I get a podcast together? How can I structure that? What does that look like? How do I get in front of people? So I help them map all of that out based on the experience that I've had, and help them by producing their podcast. And then some folks, they'll be on the podcast, they're like, hey, this was a great interview, and I've seen residuals from it. I've been able to sell my book. I've been able to talk about my product or service, but I want to get in front of other people as well. So the second leg of our stool is, we've created this list of 900 podcasts and conferences. Isn't all up to date as of today. So that's we're still in July 2025, even though I think this airs a little bit later. So those 900 speakers and conferences and podcasts, you can have access to that as well. And that can help you get on different stages. So I'm trying to, once again, women have a voice. They need to be heard by everyone. So any way that I can help you get in front of folks, feel comfortable in front of people, and share your story so you can grow your business, or just because it's something you want to do in midlife. So it's just a new pivot for you. That's what I'm working on doing right now.
Love it. And I love your point about every woman having something to say, right? Every individual human has a piece of the whole and is expressing it in her unique individual way, right? And that is going to resonate with the people that she's meant to resonate with. And if she never has the courage to get out there and put her story out there, then it's almost like robbing those people who are waiting.
I know. And there's so many different levels. It doesn't have to be around menopause, but if we're talking about menopause, I've heard people have a show where they're just interviewing other people who have a story to tell, or they're interviewing elderly women who were never even allowed to talk about menopause or their cycle. Like, those are really, I know, they're really inspirational. They're really motivational. I have someone where they do financial planning for women. People might think, that's boring, but there's a spin and a twist to every single thing. If you're helping women with their finances, you are empowering the economy, basically, because we're spending the majority of the dollars. So there's just something for, I think everyone has, just like you said, a story to tell, and I want to help people tell their stories.
I love that. And what a great way to take the background in telecommunications and combine it with this experience that you've had to then move forward and share your genius with more people. It's just such a beautiful story that you've had that has unfolded. And I always I feel like I can be very Pollyanna and seeing, the great and like, oh, that's so exciting,
Me
so
too.
amazing.
Me too.
And it's not, I just want to say it's not to say without the struggles, right? Because every time you make a transition, there are struggles. It's a
Mhm.
challenge. And I also think that stories like yours show other women that it's possible,
Yeah.
and it's almost a way of giving them permission to say, well, if I can do it, you can do it too. If you feel this within your body, if you feel something like that pull or that call, then it's meant for you, you
Yeah.
know?
Part of the 2 years, 2017 to 2019, I think I mentioned, but I couldn't drive. So I spent a lot of time at home. Like I drove to work, but I probably shouldn't have been most days. But every time I went somewhere, if I drove quote unquote out of town, like 20 minutes away, my husband is retired. So he would take me to work and take me to different places. And I totally don't know where I was going with this.
Meta brain moment.
Oh, good though. What I was going to say. Oh, I know what I was going to say.
Here we go.
During that time, I had a lot of time alone. Normally, I like it, but it was just a little bit too much. But instead of like sitting in the aloneness, I started thinking about what does the next story look like. It to me, it was part of not giving up. It was also a part of the plan that I'm like, okay, I'm going to want to work after this. What does that look like? And helping, I was trying in my mind to formulate what the next steps in life would be. So that's part of the story that I want women to think about. Like it's not over because you're having hot flashes, or your hair is thinning, or you're getting wrinkles, or whatever you may think that the life is over. This is just the beginning. I'm seeing so many amazing 50 plus, 35 plus women who are doing such incredible things. So just as a point of encouragement, like I've been there, and probably, not to make my story even, say, oh, my story is worse than yours. But I've been in this situation where my 75-year-old mom had to take me grocery shopping and hold my hand and carry my groceries out. Like I've
Mm.
been, and not knowing if are they missing something on the test. But during all of that, once again, just always thinking about, okay, this is not who I am. This is not who I'm going to be. I need to look forward. And that's what I want women to do. I want you to understand what's truly inside of you and start to look forward. What's next for you? Because there's something big and we need to hear about it. We need to know what's
Mm.
inside of you.
Yeah, so beautiful. Well, can you tell us about the specific offers that you have right now? Like, I know you just launched something. I would just love to hear, and how can people work with you if they're feeling inspired to share their story?
Yeah, so I have three different offers. One is so again, the podcast Hello Hot Flash, we do sponsorships on the podcast. So I have a year-long sponsor now. So we're looking for 2026 sponsors of the podcast. So I can talk with people, see if we would be a good fit for each other. If they would be a good fit for the podcast as well. So that's a way for a woman and or a company or business to amplify their voice. Another
Mm.
way for them to amplify their voice is by creating their own podcast. So I have a couple clients right now where they do the recording, but all of the technology behind it, the audio, the video, the social media, we do that work for those clients as well. Again, just part of amplifying the voice. And then the third leg is around speaking. So you just, man, how did someone get on that stage? How did they know that there was a conference in Dallas on October 3rd? Well, it takes a lot of time to find all of the conferences and all of the podcasts, and then find out, how do I get on Midlife by Design? I need to figure out where Lori's contact information is. I did all of that for you. So
Mm.
I've created a list of 900 different speaking engagements, and we'll keep that list current as well. 900 different speaking engagements. So, and a platform where it helps you, like, just reach out to like 5 different places per day. It gives you a rhythm of how you can reach out as well. So that's available to folks as well. And you can go to hellohotflash.com, click on the work with me on the tab, and then everything is explained out a little bit more. But I really appreciate you letting me say that, Lori.
Oh my gosh, 100%. I think, women supporting women is so important. And I'm curious, I have one question about the speaking engagements piece. The list that you curated, is that specifically conferences that would women in the audience, or were there any guardrails that you had when you were creating that list?
Thank you, because I should have said that.
No
No,
worries.
the wide range. Great job, Lori. Wide range of niches. So
Okay.
faith-based, women's health, just general health, AI, technology, finance, education, business. So there's a wide list. It's not just for women, it's for men and women both. But there is a sub niche category that you can search by. And for sub niche, I did specifically do women's health. So if you're a yoga teacher, there's some specifically for yoga teachers. So we tried to dig deep into a bunch of different things because people are they're multidimensional. So for example, just because I talk about menopause doesn't mean that I can't go on a business podcast and talk about women's health, because you need that. Or and I want people to think about that. I might not go on an AI podcast, but maybe I go on a conference for yoga instructors. So not just thinking within your general niche, but thinking how you can support the niches around. That's why we made it so broad.
Yeah, so good. And I just wanted to circle around because for my listeners, I don't talk a lot about organized religion, but I talk a lot about spirituality. And I know that you have a Christian podcast.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a
Mm.
limited series called Christian Women and Menopause. So I walk through all of the things you need around nutrition and so forth, but that extra aspect of how do you pray through this? What are some scriptures related to that? The woman who touched the hem of Jesus's garment, I'm completely convinced was perimenopausal with a bleeding condition. Like no one else can tell me that's not it. I'm like, there's menopause in the Bible. So
Oh God,
yeah,
God,
yeah,
literally. Yeah,
yes, yes,
absolutely.
yeah. So
Well,
yeah, that is available as well. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I felt like it deserved to be mentioned because I personally do not practice an organized religion, but I feel very connected to, a source. And I think that that is another one of the things that midlife can do for us is help us understand how connected we all are as one. And, regardless of your beliefs, regardless of if you decide to practice a specific religion or not, I think that understanding that in the end, it comes back to this inner knowing is so, so important. And, you call it prayer, I call it meditation, whatever the case may be, tomato, tomato. I feel like it's important too to bring in diverse voices to our different pods in order to see the fabric, to see the tapestry, and to understand that even when we have differences and different viewpoints of looking at different things, there are also so many similarities, like experiencing perimenopause, something that all women go through if we are lucky enough to get to this age. We all experience that. So, well, thank you so much, Stephanie, for joining me today. And I just wanted to give you the floor one last time if you have anything that you'd like to tell my listeners as we close out here.
Yeah, I would just say, and you said it first on the podcast, is to trust your intuition. Yes, go to the doctors. Yes, do whatever you need to do as far as it relates to testing, but know your body, trust your body, and then speak up for yourself as well. That's going to help you move forward. When you go in there and you have a list of questions ready to go, and you're not taking that 15-minute session or probably 5-minute session and just letting them leave the room, you're asking them questions. I have found that when you start to do that, they actually the doctor will sit down and listen to you when you have that good set of questions and you're asking them to them. So if nothing else from that, trust your intuition and go into the office prepared.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I so appreciate you and your story and for sharing it with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Midlife by Design. I hope it helped remind you that you can overcome health challenges and that your best life is really just getting started in midlife. Stephanie mentioned having a list of symptoms and questions ready to go when you visit your doctor. So I'm going to drop my free perimenopause survival guide in the show notes to help you out with that, because there's a checklist in there that you can use when you go to see your doctor. And also Stephanie mentioned that she does podcast production. So if you are listening to this and feeling like an overwhelmed podcaster yourself, looking for support, or if you're about to launch a podcast or thinking about it and looking for support, then there's a link in the show notes for you to check out her services. And you'll also find Stephanie's other links are there as well. So get her free guide on 10 ways to get booked to speak. And I really encourage you to use this as inspiration to start sharing your own story. So, as always, I am wishing you the strength to let go of what no longer serves you, joy to fill your days, and the clarity to be who you came here to be.